A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. The inability to bear sight to another's suffering. Throughout the semester, we kept coming back to compassion. Dalai Lama writes that morality begins with the inability to bear sight of another's suffering. Maybe being human isn't about usefulness, maybe it's about sensitivity. A Psalm of the Wild build takes place in a post-industrial future where humans almost destroyed their planet through over-industrialization. Instead of continuing going down that path, they try to create a more sustainable world. All robots chose to leave human civilization to live freely in the wilderness. They're not forced, they leave by choice. The story follows Dex, a tea monk searching for meaning and purpose, and Moscap, the first robot to return from the wild after centuries. He returns with one question which drives the entire story. What do humans need? Technology and consciousness. One of the main ethical concerns is artificial intelligence and if a machine can have moral status. Moscap isn't just programmed, it's self-aware, curious, reflective, compassionate, and chooses its own path. It isn't owned or controlled. It exists freely. Becky Chambers is asking if a machine can think and question existence and experience wonder. Does it deserve moral right? Namos points out that Namos points out that we give life to the things we care about. Similar to Moscap, it isn't just coded, it's loved by the reader. And because of that, we naturally begin to treat it as something alive, not just as a tool. The mind-body problem invades our understanding of the entire cosmos and its history. Nagel's arguing that we can't ignore consciousness because it affects how we understand everything. The great advances in the physical and biological sciences were made possible by excluding the mind from the physical world. He says science developed by ignoring the mind, but Chamber challenges this as she brings the mind back by creating a robot that isn't just code but consciousness. The Dalai Lama says, transforming our heart and mind so that our actions become spontaneously ethical requires that we put the pursuit of virtue at the heart of our daily lives, which reminds us that morality isn't something you program, it's something you cultivate. Dex doesn't feel fulfilled in a peaceful and balanced society. So even though Dex lives in a peaceful and sustainable society, they still feel useless, not because they aren't contributing, but because they were taught that useless equals worth. This reflects our capitalistic mindset where we are taught that if we're not producing, we are not deserving, that rest has to be earned. Dex isn't broken, they are responding to a system built on fear. Aung San Suu Kyi says that fear, not power, is what actually corrupts us. In Dex's case, it's fear of being worthless that drives the anxiety, not a lack of ability. Bell Hooks reminds us, if something causes us harm, we can't call it love. And if a system demands constant productivity at the cost of mental and physical health, that system is not care, it's control. Humanity doesn't collapse from humanity in the novel doesn't collapse from technology. They mature from it. They choose to limit themselves from constant expanding. That's what makes this different from most sci-fi dystopias. It shows restraint instead of destruction. The robots leaving is a symbolic withdrawal, not a rebellion. It represents excess industry stepping away so the planet can breathe again. What's powerful is that humans don't panic. They accept it. In real life, we're terrified of technological loss. In Chambers' world, stepping back becomes an act of wisdom. In the Psalm of the Wild Built, humanity does not collapse because of technology. They learn to willingly pull back from it and limit themselves, which is rare in sci-fi and even rare in real life. The Dalai Lama says, "The earth, our only home, is no longer seen as a source of life, but as an object of exploitation. He describes the mindset that got us in our environmental crisis. We stopped seeing the earth as our home, but as something alive, and instead as a resource. In the novel, people consciously correct this mindset. They stop seeing nature as something to extract from and something to coexist with. He also writes, recognizing others as human being like myself dissolves the distance that allows exploitation. And that's what happens in the book. Not only in nature, but even with the robots. Once you realize another as being worthy, it becomes harder to exploit them. A man's rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. Thoreau, Walden 92. Thoreau suggests that wealth isn't defined by what we control, but what we are able to leave untouched. In the novel, humanity becomes morally richer by stepping away from constant consumption control. Unlike typical sci-fi dystopias where technology destroys us, Chambers shows a world where humanity saves itself by choosing limits instead of endless advancement. Takeaways. A Song of the Wild West reminds us that our purpose isn't to conquer, maximize, or outproduce. Maybe it's just to notice, care, and to exist. Maybe that's not laziness. Maybe that's ethical evolution. Most science fiction warns us by showing us worst-case futures, surveillance states, total control, environmental collapse. But Becky Chambers does something different. She doesn't scare us into change. She invites us into imagining something better. Ethical limits on innovation. Chambers suggests that technology should have moral boundaries. Just because we can build something doesn't mean we should. Respect for non-human intelligence. MOSCAP represents a form of intelligence that isn't human but deserves dignity. The future isn't about dominance, it's about coexistence. Valuing rest and emotional well-being. The book constantly emphasizes rest, slowness, care, and emotional healing. It challenges the idea that productivity is more important than mental health. Sustainability over endless growth. Instead of infinite expansion, Chambers shows a society that chooses balance. Growth has limits, life has needs. Nemos reminds us that beauty holds a promise, not a guarantee. Chambers' world doesn't promise perfection, it just offers a healthier direction, a more compassionate possibility. A Song for the Wild Built doesn't give us a perfect future, but it shows us one worth moving toward. Thank you.